Alright, well, hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited to share with you my 2 years journey now, getting into this whole thing called generative AI and coming to the decision to develop my own AI literacy curriculum. Okay. All right. So first, I'm going to kind of give you my story of getting involved in this. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a sort of an anthropological take on what's happening between humans and AI. And then I will give you a very brief overview of where my curriculum is at. So this might seem like a familiar reaction to hearing first about ChatGPT way back when in maybe late 2022, early 2023. I definitely had this moment of panic when I started to find out what it is and what it can do and how it can be misused, especially by students, to basically take a shortcut and offload academic work onto this, convenient little thing. So my initial reaction was, I have to talk to my students about this. So I was teaching 3 classes in the spring of 2023. In one of my classes, I brought up the subject, and the conversation was terrible. What I exactly wanted to avoid happened. Meaning, only because I mentioned it, students got really curious about it. And they actually, as we sat in the classroom and talked, students started to pull up, ChatGPT in front of me on their laptops to try to get it to do the homework for them. So I went, okay, this is not working. What should I do? So at that point, I realized this kind of just telling students to do this or not to do that is not going to work. And instead, I decided, okay, maybe I need to kind of tackle this a little bit more seriously. And in order to do that, first have to kind of educate myself about what it is, how it works. And so I went off on a deep end. And I used the word leap because it was really a bit of a leap of faith because I'm a qualitative humanistic anthropologist with no technology background. I had no clue what I was getting into. But I figured, well, there got to be some information out there to kind of give me a layperson's understanding of what's happening under the hood, so I can at least make an educated guess about what goes on when I type in a few words into the conversation page. Oh, that looks really good. But so one of the places I ended up in was Discord. Just in case you're not familiar, this is a social media favored by gamers and tech bros. But last couple of years, those major players like Google, OpenAI have been using their Discord server to reach out to their key audiences and to get feedback from their key audiences on the new products that are coming out. So this turned out to be a very chaotic, very confusing, very overwhelming place, but nonetheless, very informative and helpful. Eventually, where I ended up was the image generation community within the OpenAI Discord server, and I kind of got into it to the point where I was asked to play an educational role on their server. So this day, I keep posting those educational material on their Discord server. And last spring, I actually taught a course on AI image generation. And I used my own Discord server as an interactive space where we can collaborate with. So this is a bit about my student posting something and I'm using her prompt, modifying it and coming up with my own image and kind of trying to exchange information about how to work this. So this turned out to be a very productive place after a while, but initially it was just so overwhelming. I would look at some chat and I understand maybe 20% of what people are saying. I get overwhelmed and I have to shut it off, right? So one thing, if you want to get into this in some form or other, my suggestion is to find an entry point that interests you. So in my case, I wasn't really looking to learn about image generation, but that's where I ended up because I thought, hey, how hard it can be to look at some pretty pictures, right? So that helped me to kind of get into the community and be able to start kind of understanding a little by little what more experienced users are talking about. And by the way, this is a really mixed bag of people who come to these kind of forums. They could be complete novice like myself, or advanced enthusiasts who know pretty much anything and everything about ChatGPT in this case, except for the part where that involves programming. And then, of course, there are AI developers and researchers who are actually in these conversations going on and on about things that I have no clue what they are about. So you have to anticipate that if you decide to venture into this kind of place. Of course, I also try to read published items as well, but I found academic publications really not very useful to me, partially because, as we all know, academic publications take years to get out. So if people are working on AI literacy questions now, the results of their research won't come out until 2 years, 3 years later. So there's really not much. And then, anything in computer science, technology studies, they're like way over my head. So I went to more popular sources, including things like Future of Jobs report by World Economic Forum. If you know who they are, they're evil globalists, capitalists, who published this report to kind of project what's going to happen in the workplace in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in the future. And what I found in the first report I looked at from 2023, basically, and then I also went to LinkedIn. There are groups in LinkedIn that's focused on AI in education, AI literacy, stuff like that. Substack is an online publishing platform which has many writers who have their own channels writing about AI in education. Inside Higher Ed has had some very thoughtful articles. After I started to look at those, one of the shocking takeaway I had was that workers with AI will replace those without in the very near future. And it's really happening already. So I realized, okay, so this is the world my students are going to graduate into. And if we don't prepare them to survive, handle, deal with the workplace with AI, they really have to start before they get there. And we can't, I can't personally, because I don't have the kind of professional expertise to, teach exactly how AI is going to be applied in the workplace, but some kind of basic literacy, familiarity with the technology, some basic skills to communicate with AI to get the outcomes that we desire. Things like that can be taught even by somebody who is just an enthusiast like myself. So here's the reckoning, the momentum reckoning. So I had to make a decision. Knowing that yes, most likely our students will have to contend with the world infused with AI. What do I do as an educator? So the honest truth, this thought occurred to me, I'm a full professor. Nobody's going to take away my job if I don't do anything with AI. And obviously, it's going to take a lot of work for me to come up with anything that's remotely useful for my students. So is it worth it? Should I do it? Am I even the right person to do it? So I have to really, really think about this. So whenever I have a complex problem that I don't know what to do with, I resort to my anthropological training. So that's what I did. And I started to really think of the connection relationship between AI and human intelligence from an anthropological standpoint. But in a nutshell, it's the idea that the human, of course, our scientific name is Homo sapiens, human, the thinker, right? But there's another conceptualization of our species as Homo faber, or human, the maker. So basically, this idea is human beings are tool-making, world-shaping creatures who are in turn shaped by the use of technology. So basically, the technological revolution and human evolution are intertwined, and it kind of goes back and forth in a very kind of synergistic kind of way. So we cannot really discuss our species without discussing how we use tools to extend our natural capabilities and accomplish things far beyond what we are equipped with. So obviously, the tools have been around for a long, long time. Oops. But tools are not the only things that human beings have used in order to extend, augment our individual capabilities. The other thing that we have done is the teams, the collaboration. So from prehistoric times, we have used those tools, and also we work together so that we can accomplish more than we can possibly do as an individual with no assistive technology. And an interesting situation that I thought of was the canines. So are they the tool or the team? The quick answer is they're actually both, right? So maybe initial stage where canines and humans started to build this kind of relationship, maybe it was utilitarian, maybe they each saw some sort of benefit in hanging out together, but over the course of coevolution, we come to kind of depend on each other, and companionship has become a major component of how we relate to the canine. So it's arguable that one entity can be both the tool, which is a kind of a passive implement that can be used very effectively, but it needs somebody to pick it up and add the motion, right? But canines, to an extent, and definitely human collaborators, they have their own agency. They can think through the problem. They can act upon the presumed solutions, right? So that the big difference is tools don't have agency, but teams are agented. Okay, so fast forward to 2025, we are seeing this interesting shift of AI being the passive tool. Remember when you first encountered ChatGPT early, maybe 2023, there's this blank chat window, you type in something, and then ChatGPT gets busy to churn out some stuff, right? So that's a passive tool. We have to prompt it to do something, and it will do exactly what it thinks we asked, and then it will produce something, right? But Microsoft started this part of the 2023 actually with Copilot to actually recast AI as a companion. So it's not just this passive tool now, but it's everywhere. It's popping up in a lot of different places in our daily lives, offering to help, right? And Apple was very reluctant to get into this AI game, but finally I think earlier this year, they released Apple Intelligence. Google kind of lagged behind as well, but now it has integrated AI mode in Google search function, and also they're now aggressively marketing Gemini as a personal assistant. Perplexity AI just came up with their own browser, Comet, to which Perplexity AI is native to. So it's a built-in assistant. So as soon as you open up the browser, assistant to pop up and say, hey, can I help? What can we do? Right? So we are seeing this, kind of a big trend, kind of swelling up. And then of course, we are starting to see these agents, AI agents. So the difference between pure generative AI and AI agents is basically that, more the agency, right? So agentic AI can actually take action on your behalf based on your request. Yeah, I know. And they're making, so actors like OpenAI and Google are making it easier and easier right now for people to build their own agents that can be applied in any number of situations. And of course, maybe a few years, maybe 5 years down the road on the horizon, is AGI, artificial general intelligence. So we are talking about this shift from passive tool to agentic team member increasingly. So in this world in which we are seeing this, emergence of agentic AI, there's this looming nightmare, right? So I'm sure you recognize the scene from Matrix. So that question, this scenario has been worked over and over again in dystopian sci-fi stories, but basically, it's beyond this question of is AI going to be our tool or a team member? But the worst case scenario is AI is going to turn us into its tool. That's our humanity's worst nightmare, right? So back to my question. So what can I do as an educator? I figured, okay, as even in the smallest, most insignificant way, I want to contribute to not go there, not make this scenario our reality. So when I got started on this in the summer of 2023, only a few people are starting to talk about this concept of AI literacy, and there were very few ready to adopt material out there. So I basically had to do everything by myself. And of course, I was still learning about this AI thing myself. So that was quite an interesting journey. But I won't go into all the nitty-gritties of what I had to do. Instead, I will just give you an overview of what happened. So the first part of this project, curricular development project that I tackled on, was to build 3 30-minute modules that can be dropped into basically any course to give students a very basic foundation to work with AI. So this is first one is called Meet ChatGPT. So I do a systematic introduction. GPT is have very, very, very brief section on AI technology itself as well. Talking about how what we put into the chat window has so much impact on what we get out of AI chatbots. And then ethics of AI use. So when it's okay to use, when it's recommended to use, when you really shouldn't be using, and when you definitely shouldn't be using, right? And along the way, I was starting to realize, okay, I need to really write academic policies for my courses so students are clear about what I'm trying to tell them. So I started with the document called, I think the long title is Guidelines for the Responsible Use of AI in Academic Coursework or something like that. But that's a basic guideline on what you can do, what you cannot do. You still have to respect the academic honesty policy, blah, blah, blah. But then as I started to actually teach AI related materials, I realized that was not quite enough. Students actually needed a more pragmatic instructions on, for example, when they really need to disclose something was generated by AI. This is particularly important for visual material because, we all are concerned about deep fakes and stuff like that. Even when you're not intending to fake people, if we don't disclose, people might see everything in the image as reality, right? So, it's important to say something in certain situations. AI citation requirements, APA now has a fully developed AI citation rules. So I, went over this and had exercises for students to kind of familiarize themselves, stuff like that. So those things evolved as I was teaching these 3 foundation modules in the first year. And in the second year, which was the last academic year, I was getting better in those areas. So I was starting to invest more into custom instructions and activities for specific courses. So on 306 interview method, that was an interesting one. I had students doing qualitative analysis of interview transcripts using ChatGPT. And students don't have the actual skills to prompt properly. So I basically gave them the template to first put in these words, customized by putting in your research topic kind of things. But students have to go through the whole process of using ChatGPT to do things like coding, not the computer coding, but qualitative researchers code, mark certain portions of the transcript that are relevant to specific research questions and stuff like that. ChatGPT can actually do those things if you prompt it right. So students went through that. So on 135, Story of My Life is a WA course where students use ChatGPT as kind of like a writing tutor. but specialized to my course and my assignment. So basically I had to, so students had to provide my prompt and my grading rubric to ChatGPT, then gave very specific instructions about what kind of feedback we are looking for, and then only then upload the draft. So students are actually surprised. They're actually really excited by how relevant and detailed the comments that they got from ChatGPT was. But it does take that kind of conditioning or priming in order to get that kind of feedback. So the last one is my image generation course. And my aim there was not to just make pretty pictures, but to kind of show students how AI's generative power can be leveraged to make your stories come alive. And that's, that was the real person. Every student did a storytelling project in the last half of the semester, came up with their own stories. And students did some really fascinating things. Of course, some of them just did, now in a storybook, the children's book kind of things, but a couple of students did like marketing promotion materials. So there's a range of things that the students came up with. So that's the sort of curricular development in a 2-year period. If you want more nitty-gritties, you're welcome to go to my website, www.iai2learn.org. Also, I put together an interim report after the first year of implementation, which I actually self-published from Amazon. The reason why I did that was by that time, so this is the summer of 2024, everybody started to talk about AI literacy online. So I thought, you know what, I need to copyright something. So I can say later on, 10 years after my retirement, look, I already knew about it. See, in 2024, right? So that's available if you're interested. I brought a copy if you want to take a look. Okay, so at the same time, I was doing a first-person action research, meaning basically being more mindful about documenting all those observations and changes that I was making in those, iterative processes. And I found some, really important insights from my own notes and documents and so forth. So one of the things was, and this was actually a pleasant surprise, majority of students are really hungry for clear guidance on ethical use of AI. There are, I won't lie, there are a couple students who attempted to misuse AI, but basically my assignments are set up in such a way that if they don't know how to use AI, they will get really bad grade. So they quickly realize, oh, this is not working. But generally speaking, students are curious but mortified by the possibility of being accused of academic dishonesty. So they would rather not touch it and not, risk anything, even though they're interested and they are hearing things that they think might be really, really helpful to them. So this is really important to give a very clear, realistic guidance that can be followed, not something that's up in the air that you can talk about it, but it's very hard to implement. You really have to be realistic and clear. Prompt engineering, this is obviously a key element of any AI literacy training, but it's an important thing to remember. There's sometimes people are concerned about AI taking away the opportunity for students to practice critical thinking. It's actually the other way around in my experience, which is in order to really work effectively with AI, you have to really turn on your critical thinking to first interrogate yourself about what you are really trying to get at, and then be able to verbalize it in an organized and systematic way, and then to monitor what AI is doing and basically, revise, change course, reprompt in order to really keep track of where they're going. So actually, this creates an ample opportunity for critical thinking if we teach them to do it. If we're just saying, oh, just ask it ChatGPT, that won't happen. But if you're using this, like actually people who know about AI usually do, you do have to really turn on your analytical skills. Course integration versus modular approach. So I started with the modular approach because obviously that saves time for us, right? Less prep time. But obviously, we all know from our own teaching experience, course integration really helps with students' engagement, right? So we really have to kind of balance these two. So that's why I started to develop course-specific content once I felt like my basic modules are in pretty good shape. So I have to do kind of both, a little bit of both. But I think if I have sweet spots, not just about AI, but any kind of teaching, I think we have to do that juggling. And the last and probably most important realization was mindset over technicality. So AI technology changes fast. One of the AI developers that I communicate with on a regular basis said 3 months to AI is like lifetime. 1 year is like eternity. So it moves at the speed that's inconceivable for human learners, right? So no policy will be able to keep up with ever expanding, ever changing nature of AI technology. And we saw how things are being integrated into all different apps and so forth. There's no way that we can keep up with written policies to regulate and monitor student behavior. So where do we go? We really need to cultivate a particular kind of mindset in students about how to use AI. So I had two research questions. First one was a learning centered mindset. Is my teaching helping students to think of AI is a support and enhancement to their learning instead of offsetting their work? And of course, I got all the positive responses. Second question was whether my curriculum was providing practical knowledge and skills to basically support the kind of mindset. If students are really using AI to learn, they still need to be able to write the right kind of prompt or provide the right kind of so that it can do its thing without getting distracted by this whole pool of knowledge it has in its background. So again, I got, very positive responses. But I'm not going to go into this because, like I said, I really know this is really kind of a anticipated outcome. And the students, I got maybe 20% response rate. And the only students who respond are mostly either they have a huge amount of complaints or they really like what I do, right? So in this case, it was not a requirement, it was anonymous. And so, only students who had something positive to say basically filled out the actual response. So, I'm not fooled by this as like a, seal of approval, but, I also know this is what I have to do to get published. But there are a couple of things, like for example, skill gains, good, increased understanding of AI basics. Students are really thinking of research and writing, how to use AI as a support to their research and writing endeavors. They also were able to talk about the limits, things they cannot do or shouldn't do. And also some students commented on how this is going to help them when they get to the workplace, at least have some understanding of how this works. So this is kind of an overview of what I have now in terms of my AI2L literacy program. So it starts with a particular definition of AI literacy as the cultivated disposition to use AI in ways that promote human flourishing. Words like disposition, human flourishing are very, very intentional because most of the time, AI literacy programs focus on the technology side of things, but I think the technology without the heart and soul is really not what we want. So disposition includes all kinds of different things, and I see that as kind of a three-layered pyramid or maybe iceberg, if you like. So the top part, the most visible part over the waterline is how to apply AI technology, right? So I call that context-specific competency. So students need to have that so that that would enable productive and responsible application of AI in academic, professional, and creative settings. They do have to have that technical skills. But it has to be uh, founded by this particular mentality, which I call learning mindset, right? So I tell my students, this is like a mantra. I repeat this every day, multiple times every class session. Use AI to support and enhance your learning, not to let AI do the learning for you. And whenever you're not sure whether they should be using AI or not, always ask yourself, are you supporting and enhancing your own learning by doing this with AI or not? If not, then you shouldn't be doing it. And actually, students do pretty well. I have, in class exercise, scenario exercises and stuff like that, that students do pretty well. And I have group discussions and they talk about these issues. They come up with some really actually insightful comments and questions about the gray areas and stuff like that. So actually, if we work on it, I think students do respond very well to that idea. And so these are the two, opposite ends, right? This is the philosophical foundation. The students, we have to help students cultivate this learning mindset whenever they're interacting with AI. But also we have to back it up with concrete, practical skills. But there's a big gap between those two. It's very difficult to translate this into that. Middle layer is kind of the bridge, which I call human-centered workflow. So we have to teach students to break down any particular assignment into step-by-step workflow and identify which. So obviously the human actor has to be in the driving seat for the entire workflow. We are responsible as a human user, but there are parts, stages within that workflow where engaging AI is beneficial. So we have to use our judgment to say, okay, this part, I'm going to be totally in charge. This part, I'm still in charge, but this particular task, I'm going to use AI, and so on, so on, so on. So how I do this in my foundation level course is to basically give students a template. So when you're doing a writing assignment, you go through these steps. And this is where you can use AI, this is where you cannot. But the important things about this workflow is that our value is a learning mindset in which human users' inquiry, creativity, and purpose drive the use of AI tools. So we have to have our own vision, our own purpose, what we want to get accomplished, what do we want to know, and then get AI to help us get there. So, for example, I don't encourage students to use AI for brainstorming for course assignments because students really usually don't have the really good skills of brainstorming anyway. So they end up actually asking AI to tell them what to do with this assignment. So I tell students, you know what, don't even go there. You have to suffer and struggle to come up with what you want to do with this assignment. After that, there are opportunities to get AI's help. Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up, a few key characteristics, and I'll tell you, I will disclose. I actually talked to ChatGPT about my curriculum and what it thought about my curriculum. So so this came out as a kind of part of my conversation with ChatGPT. But one of the things that ChatGPT pointed out was, yes, most of the AI literacy curriculum is more technical, which inadvertently put AI as a central actor. And my curriculum really specifically talk about this human-centeredness. So it's really unique in that way. And because of that, AI is captured as a partner in human development. Responsible behaviors, reminds them that fear appeals, right? They're not thinking about getting caught. I'm actually very lenient about what students do with AI tools because partially, I have it rigged, right? So my assignments are hard to do well if they don't know how to use AI properly. But also, there's I decided it's waste of my time to really try to police what students are doing. And I really don't think there's any platforms right now that can really detect what was written by AI anymore. AI is getting very good at writing. So it's, and also I did actually, I tried this. I built a custom GPT that can write like me. So if anybody is good at doing this, they can actually teach AI their writing style, and the AI can draft your essay in the style you always use. So it's, it's just a waste of my brain wavelengths at this point. So instead,
Ask it to write like an 18-year-old.
yeah, that's right, that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah, slacker A- student. Not make it too perfect.
That's
Great. And then the last but not least, actually my curriculum is very adaptable. It can be used in different pedagogical contexts, and outcome of this training is also transferable because bottom two layers, the mindset part and also the workflow part, those are pretty much durable no matter where they go. So the top part, the context specific skill part, that has to get refreshed and changed depending on where people are. But once you have the mentality and the template of how tasks into those stages to move through, that part doesn't have to be redone only because the context changed. Okay, sorry, I kept talking.